In this video, I will teach you how to write our third LEQ of the year. Unlike the previous two essays, this LEQ is going to be a comparison. We'll be comparing two different elements of U.S. history. The prompt for this LEQ is compare the governments created under the Articles of Confederation and the U.S. Constitution. Using the themes from APUSH, the themes that we call spacemen, we're going to organize the similarities and differences into two major categories or themes. The first category that we're going to use is politics. Okay, looking for political similarities or differences. The second major similarities or differences, or second major category, is going to be economics. This slide illustrates for you the major differences between the U.S. Constitution and the Articles of Confederation. It is also divided into themes by politics and economics. Use this as a guideline to help you develop your essay. Notice how I did not give you any specific vocabulary terms in either of these categories. Pause the video and fill out your pre-write chart. This chart illustrates the similarities between the Articles of Confederation and the U.S. Constitution. Like the previous slide, I didn't give you any specific vocabulary terms as evidence. You'll need to pull that from your own knowledge. It is also divided by theme. Pause the slide and continue to fill out your pre-write handout. After filling out your chart, you should have realized that there are far more differences than there are similarities. You're going to use each subtopic as your main arguments. Your A statement is going to be the political differences, because in my opinion, there are more political differences. This is going to be your strongest argument that there are more political differences. Your B statement is going to be economic differences. You're going to pull from the economics portion of your pre-write to write this particular paragraph. And your complexity point, or your similarities, can come from either political or economic, or both. So these are your A, B, and C statements. Alright, so let's build your thesis statement. We've already done step one. We've categorized similarities and differences. Your A statement is going to be one category, and we decided to choose political. Your B statement is going to be the other category, or economic, and C statement is going to be the similarity. Your Y statement is going to be your overall argument. You're going to state that there are more differences between the two than similarities. Alright, so let's put it all together. So you remember that your formula is going to be all those C plus A and B, therefore Y. So here's a sample thesis that you can use as inspiration. Although both governments were created out of a fear of tyranny and allowed states to levy taxes, the Articles of Confederation created a weaker government and could not levy taxes like the Constitution could. Therefore, there are more differences between the Articles of Confederation and Constitution than similarities. Okay, now that we've tackled the thesis, let's go back and hit the pre-context. Remember, your pre-context is going to be in your introduction. There's 3 to 4 sentences that set the stage for your essay. A couple of examples being the crawler in the Star Wars, or if you're watching Netflix and they do a recap or previously on. This is going to set the stage on your essay. Okay, so let's build our pre-context. Let's start with step one, is what is the prompt asking for? Remember, this is a comparison essay, so we're comparing the Articles of Confederation to the Constitution. So, for your pre-context, you can't really talk about the Constitution. You have to talk about what caused the situation, the prompt, meaning what caused the Articles of Confederation. So you're going to think about why the Founding Fathers wrote the Articles of Confederation. You're going to come up with an ACE that answers that question, and then you're going to write a good transition sentence that leads straight into your thesis. Okay, so let's build the pre-context. Remember, the prompt is compare the governments created under the Articles of Confederation and the U.S. Constitution. So a good question to answer for your pre-context would be, what political issues caused the development of the Articles of Confederation? Mr. C and I have come up with 4 options for you. Option number 1 is the New England Confederation. Here you're going to talk about the tyranny of the royal governors and combining the New England colonies into one political unit. Option number 2 is you could talk about taxation without representation, the different taxes levied on the colonies by the British Stamp Act, Sugar Act, Tea Act, etc. Okay, all these are going to be a good cause of why they would write the government in the Articles of Confederation. Option 3 is going to be the British occupation of Boston. You could talk about the soldiers being there, the coercive acts, and shutting down trade. And that's going to directly lead to the government written in the Articles of Confederation. Finally is the Quartering Act, forcing soldiers into the homes of Americans. You can use any of these options as a good cause, and you really remember you're explaining why the Founding Fathers wrote the Articles of Confederation the way they did, and is directly as a result of these 4 major events. If you come up with another one, that's great, but think about that when you're thinking about the Articles of Confederation. Don't forget to ace your body paragraphs, and I'll talk about how many aces you need to write in a later slide. But remember, you're answering, you're citing, you're explaining. You guys have been doing this all year. Continue to do this in order to get the points necessary to get the credit for the LEQ. All right, next I want to talk about the post-contextualization before we get to the overall structure of your essay. Remember, this is something that's telling me what's happening next. So here you're going to do post-context. All right, let's talk about the post-context real quick. We're gonna try to answer the question of what resulted from the situation in the prompt. So if we're going in a linear timeline, you're going to talk about a result of the U.S. Constitution. You're going to use ACE, and you're going to answer the question number 1 and use a vocab term to support your answer. All right, let's talk about building your post-context. We're going to answer the question, what constitutional issues resulted from the development of the government under the U.S. Constitution? Okay, so let's give you some options. Option 1, you could talk about the 12th Amendment. As you can see in the early presidential elections, there are some ties, and the 12th Amendment kind of solves the issue of how to determine who the vice president is in presidential elections. You could use that as an option. Another constitutional issue you can discuss is the conflict between the Supreme Court and President Andrew Jackson over the movement of Indians. Option 3, you could talk about presidential power for Lincoln during wartime, Emancipation Proclamation, the suspension of habeas corpus. Those are both constitutional issues. Finally, you could talk about the Reconstruction Amendments and the federal government's expansion of power during Reconstruction in trying to protect the rights of African Americans in the South. Okay, so here is your outline of the APUSH essay for a comparison. Remember, it's just like the other ones. It's a 5-paragraph essay. You're going to have our pre-context. You're going to have a thesis statement. Body paragraph is going to be your differences, either political or economic. You need to have 2 aces here, meaning you need to have 2 examples of political or economic differences. Remember to rank them. Give me the strongest one. Give me the second strongest one. Body paragraph 2 is going to be another paragraph on differences. It's going to be the opposite of paragraph number 2. You're going to have an economic or political, depending on what you chose in body paragraph 1. You only need 1 ace for this paragraph. Remember, it's not as strong a difference as the other category. Body paragraph 3 is going to be similarities. You need to give me 2 aces. It doesn't have to be both political. It doesn't have to be one of each. It doesn't have to be both one or the other. It can be whatever you decide to be the similarities. You can pick and choose here. You could do 1 political, 1 economic. You could do 2 economic, 2 political. It's up to you. This is how you get complexity. So put in 2 aces here. So you're going to have 5 aces total. Then you just like normal, your conclusion is going to be a thesis statement with a post-contextualization as you normally do. All right, we'll briefly go through the rubric one last time here for this LEQ. And you have the thesis point. Remember, it must be located in the introduction and the conclusion, even though College Board only requires once. We want you to write it twice. We want it in the intro and the conclusion. You must respond to the prompt with a historically arguable claim. Remember, 1 point is on contextualization, providing a broader historical context relevant to the prompt. It must occur before and after the time frame. Remember, we want you to write it twice I want one in the beginning, and I want one in the end. In an LEQ, you have the possibility of getting 2 points for evidence. Remember, you get 1 point for giving specific examples of historical evidence. These are your vocab terms that you use. You get 1 point for that. That's the F, or the fact in the example, the A and the C. You get a 2nd point for an explanation, okay, supporting your argument by tying it back to the thesis, tying it back to the argument. You must have a fully developed ACE to get both evidence points for your essay. Finally, you're going to get 2 points for analysis and reasoning. You get 1 point for creating an argument. That should be very easy to do. The 2nd point is by giving me the similarities, or that's the complexity point. So please come up with good differences and similarities, and that's how you get your 2nd analysis and reasoning point. If you have any questions on LEQ 3, please contact me or Mr. C via Remind or email, or even on Schoology. This is a different type of LEQ that you have not written before, although the format is very similar. Please don't hesitate to ask any questions. Good luck.